So I've been reading some of Georges Bataille's work, particularly his book Theory of Religion, which I think was written sometime in the 40s, 1940s, translated into English in the late 80s, and now I'm reading a digital copy. And Bataille says in there that philosophy is not a house. Philosophy is a construction site. Which is to say that it is, by definition, an unfinished project. Philosophy is an impossible project, in fact, because what constitutes the philosophical life is a pursuit of the impossible, a pursuit of the infinite, an attempt to take oneself out of the human condition, to in some way overcome one's finitude in order to merge with the flow of cosmic universal energy. Bataille was a materialist, but he recognized that even as materialists we still need a theology. The only viable form of materialism is Spinozism, pantheism. If you're going to say that all is matter, then you're saying that matter is God. And I think someone like Bataille, he's pretending to a theory of religion, right? A theology. But he's admitting right off the bat, right at the beginning of the book, that his task is infinite. That he's creating an impossible condition for himself, as a finite, particular, individual person. He's pretending to see beyond the grave, where the modern Constitution, those of us, I don't know, I probably wouldn't include myself totally in this group, but those of us who call ourselves enlightened, as Kant said, we restrict religion to the extent that we hold it to the bounds of reason. So we allow religion in the bounds of reason alone. So as far as reason can take us, that far we will admit the various dogmas of religion about immortal souls and created universes and so on. But what this modern constitution, this modern religion implies, this religion of enlightenment, of rationalism and science, is a kind of radical skepticism, at least on the surface. There's a kind of empiricism, an empirical metaphysics that limits admissible knowledge to that which can be taken in through the senses, through the outward-facing, objectively measurable senses. There are qualitative dimensions to sensory experience, of course, but these are secondary characteristics, and that through our senses and the logical intellect, the deductive, mathematical, geometrical intellect, we can measure sensory experience despite its qualitative sort of icing. We can remove the icing and get down to the cake itself, and determine its primary characteristics, volume, mass, things like this that can be studied by physicists. The psychological and the aesthetic dimensions of our embodied experience, the sensory world, all of that can also be studied in a quasi-scientific way, and we can still remain rational about that, but we have to sort of treat the psyche as a machine of some sort that can be tinkered with by injecting various chemicals or unleashing various forms of electromagnetic radiation into the brain. We can sort of corral the neural community there and get it to do what we want, because the psyche is really no more than that society of cells, neurons. So since Kant, right, our religion, to the extent that we have one, must be limited within the bounds of reason, by which we mean sensory empiricism and kind of transcendental rationalism. Now, I think a lot of times those of us nowadays who say that we are free thinkers and that we don't have a religion anymore, and we dismiss Kant's compromise between reason and religion, or science and spirit. We dismiss his compromise and we say, no, I will not limit knowledge to make room for faith. I will eliminate faith to allow knowledge to expand indefinitely. And we claim to be free thinkers in the sense that we no longer need religion, we no longer need tradition. We can think for ourselves, based on our own experience. And, I have some allegiance to that sort of posturing, but at the same time, can I really claim to be free of tradition? I mean, what I'm implying is that I, as an individual, have entirely separated and isolated myself and my own ideas from my friends, my family, my racial history, my cultural conditioning, my biological conditioning. I'm claiming a lot to say that I am a free thinker, free of cultural trappings and religious belief systems, and my approach to the world is utterly skeptical. I only admit the knowledge that I have experienced firsthand to be true, through logic or sensory experience. Okay, those are good rules of thumb, I think, and I'm not one to dismiss that, but let's be serious here. We're all gonna die one day. Everyone we know and love, we ourselves, we're gonna die. All of us. So, what kind of a situation does that put us in existentially as thinkers? Can we really be free thinkers given the fact of death? And isn't it through reflection upon and even participation in this mystery of death that religion emerges? Isn't this why we are spiritual animals? Animals that reflect upon our own finitude, and in so doing, we hope sometimes maybe to transcend that finitude, to experience immortality while still mortal, while still alive, while still an embodied mind. That's why I like to philosophize. That's why I talk about God or theologize. It's because when I'm lucky, when I find the right path for thinking, I arrive at a clearing that awakens me to something more open than my prior experience had been. Something further reaching, something larger than myself. That's why I philosophize. And like Bataille says, like many before him have said, philosophy is an infinite task, so I don't plan on finishing this house such that I could just sit back and say that I have lived in it. Philosophy is an ongoing project of sort of extemporaneous invention. I'm always encountering new problems, most of which result from the temporary solutions I had discovered to old problems. So on we go. Hopefully together. Thanks for listening.